number 2 here on Birds 365. Guest number 2 here on Birds 365. And we'll put pressure on him because, let's be honest, Jody Mack, not overly optimistic about the Birds last night. John McMullen, he didn't love what he saw. Derek Gunn came on and he tried to give us a good spin, but he said, I can't really do it. So, Chris Franklin, how are you going to come up with the positives from last night's Eagles 35-0 butt kicking at the hands of the Patriots?
I mean, I could lie to you guys. I mean, I can come up with something saying, hey, there's marshmallows falling from the sky and stuff, but it was rough to watch. It was rough to watch at times. Really
well, I still want to take you down to the Gumdrop River, Chris. I want something positive. I want something. Give me something positive you took out of this game. I got Devontae Smith's traits, his route running, maybe a little TJ Edwards and pass coverage. I thought he had a pretty nice game, but it is really tough. You got to dig deep.
And Aaron Sipos, maybe?
There you go. He was good. Bunting was good, and he got a good kickoff.
Good kickoff.
Yeah. You learned who the backup holder was? Yeah, you learned that Zach Ertz can hold as the backup holder. I mean, that's it especially after a performance like that, when you're looking at stuff like that, you don't have – I thought Patrick Johnson a little bit. He showed some stuff at times, when it comes to setting the edge, but it was really, really tough finding things, and you thought – especially coming in the second preseason game, even if it's for the young guys, they're getting used to the system. They didn't show a lot defensively, especially, but you thought they would play a lot better, getting more experience, and we just didn't get that.
And by the way, Chris, you made me think. You could say Aaron Sipos was actually better than the Patriots kicker.
So, yeah. 0 for 0, definitely. He's 100%. He didn't miss anything. It was perfect.
Exactly.
All right. Here's where I want to go, Chris. And again, if you want to be if you want to beg off because you don't know, because John doesn't know, I don't know, I'm asking you to speculate here. Both I wondered about the entire plan. Who to play, who not to play, who was hurt, who wasn't hurt, who's a veteran, who's a youngster who didn't play. It's just trying to find the thought process of Nick Sirianni, if we believe he's making all these calls because he's the head coach. You think he's supposed to make those calls. What his line of logic was across the board with all the roster, we're having trouble adding it up and coming out with an answer. So John and I are both speculating that this is a multi-layer and level decision. That it's not just Nick Sirianni. It's Nick Sirianni. It's the veteran players. It's the medical staff. It's Howie Roseman. Shoot, maybe Jeff Lurie submitted a roster as to who we wanted to see and not see last night. Who's deciding what Eagles are and aren't on the field in these preseason games?
If I had to speculate, I would say it would be I would say Howie Roseman had some say in it, because I remember during the introductory press conference when they were asking Nick Sirianni who was going to have control of the roster, Howie said he'd have control over 53 and Nick would have control over game day. So if there's a lot of questions that you have, you want to see more, you see these younger guys or guys on a bubble play more, you'd be more apt to try to see that. I'm on this side, for me personally, I think I'm on the side of Jalen Hurts really wasn't feeling good towards the end. And especially if he wasn't feeling good, you don't want to expose him, putting him behind that second team line, offensive line, because we saw what happens when they were in there going against the Patriots first team. You don't want to expose them to that pressure that they were throwing. So I think that was the case there. When it comes to some of the older veterans, I think they were just like, hey, you know what, we don't want to risk these, because we've seen this team's history when it comes to injuries last season, and you don't want to put those guys in a situation too. So I really think it goes as high as Howie Roseman. Maybe Lurie has some input, but I probably think it's more Roseman to see some of those other guys, to see who he should be able to cut, who's to keep around, practice squad, etc.
Yeah, Chris, more than Jalen Hurts, because, he got sick. I think that was just a bad break, and there's nothing Nick Sirianni can do about it. So I want to take you down this route, because from my perspective, it's the what I call the herky-jerky nature of the process. In other words, the left side of the offensive line's got to play, but the right side doesn't. The young receivers are out there for a half, but Miles Sanders is out there for 4 plays. Miles Sanders doesn't play at all in week 1. He plays in week 2. Defense, back 7's out there, other than Darius Slay. Front 4's not out there. Now, I'm not talking about the injured guys, but, the Fletcher Coxes, the Brandon Grahams, the Josh Sweats who could have played. How does that help the back seven who's got to play with those guys that they can't get reps? And how does that help Jordan Mailata, who's got to develop a chemistry with the offensive line? And it's all fragmented to me. It doesn't, that part of it doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to sit guys, sit everybody. That would make sense to me.
It really is weird in that aspect. And I'm even trying to trying to look from their angle, like, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to see how this one subsection does when it faces adversity? But then you're like, why just the whole Miles Sanders thing? I thought he should have gotten reps in the first game, and the second, and then build him up a little bit, and then pull him out, give him one series. So I still don't understand a lot of it when it comes to this playing time rotation. When it comes to a lot of stuff, I mean, if you want to get Mailata, my opinion, shouldn't be playing either, because you want to risk him to injury. If you're going to pull Kelsey, anybody, you want to have Dillard in there. You don't have Dillard, so you have Toth and pull Driscoll. It's just a mess over there. So I don't know. A lot of these decisions, it's just flabbergasting to me. I wish I could be like, hey, you know what? This is the person here. This is the here. Herky jerky actually is a pretty good adjective, but it's tongue tying. I can't even put it something right for it, but. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that they're trying to look at each individual subsection, but that still, to me, is just asinine. Doesn't make any sense. So I don't know who these guys are.
And I like asinine. That's how I would describe it. I like asinine because I agree. It's tough to make sense out of it. And I think that's why you look at 6 quarters and it's 52-0. Right? It's preseason, but 52-0 is 52-0. You figure you throw out there and try, it might be, I don't know, 52-14, 52-20. 52-0 is tough.
Understood. All right, Chris, since we're pointing the accusatory finger of guilt, let me point it in one direction. Me. Because I started to buy in last week. Quez Watkins had the 2 big plays. Jalen Reagor made this unbelievable OBJ type catch. My partner John McMullen told me the best wide receiver in camp last week was J Jaw, making catches everywhere. Mr. August again. So I take the
Did you
stance
see that drop, by the way?
I take the stance of, what do you mean we need a veteran wide receiver? We got all these younger. Look at Jalen Reagor. Look at Quez Watkins. Look at J Jaw. Well, a wide receiver. Why do we need a veteran wide receiver? Well, between those 3 last night, they had 1 catch for 5 yards for Reagor. And, oh, by the way, that's it. Quez Watkins, 0. J. Jaw, 0. Hightower, 0. And I bought into the hype of practice. And, they got the better of the Patriots in practice. But then they actually play a game, a preseason game, a game that doesn't count in the standings, but a game just the same. And they do not. Does this team desperately need a veteran wide receiver in that room to help out?
First off, if it is your fault, the punishment Philadelphia court says no roast porks for you if you caused all this. So there goes that. But I
take my punishment. I'll take my medicine.
When it comes to the veteran wide receiver, I'm in the camp of you don't need one, because I think it's very important that you let these receivers grow with Hurts, especially if you're hoping that he's a long-term solution there. They did not. There's no sugarcoat or anything. They had a bad game. It was really, it was bad. Some of the throws, some of the things you saw, like Smith, and you saw Reagor at times. I mean, Reagor I didn't like the hustle after one play on that interception. It was like he just gave up on the route at the end. But some of the times I put some of the fault on Flacco and Mullins, because some of these guys were breaking open and they just hesitated, pulled down. I mean, Flacco had Smith starting to break open. He had him earlier in the route, and he just just like, no, and then look back a split second, goes, yeah, no, maybe I should go to him. It was just I look at it as a failure from all 3 positions, for all 3 levels of the offense last night. And even if you had a veteran wide receiver, I don't see one who can make an impact enough. That is it really going to gain you 2 or 3 wins? And do you think 2 or 3 wins are actually going to get you to win the NFC East? It's definitely not going to get a wild card, because I don't think this team is good enough. It's going to get enough wins to get a wild card. So I don't think they're in a position. They don't. It's now's not the right time, I think, to get a veteran wide receiver. Give these guys a year. let them develop. J-Jaw, I think he had a good week of camp, but I think that experiment's done. I'd still let Hightowers come in and see that. But
Yeah,
this role that they have.
that was an egregious drop from JJ. I don't know. I look at practice and forget about JJ. Let's talk about Jalen Rager. We've seen it, Chris. We've seen it up close. We see him in one-on-ones. At times he runs tremendous routes and he's able to shake defensive backs, and then the lights go on. I thought he was playing defensive back. I thought he was trying to stick to the cornerback. I mean, he looked like Travis Fulgham against who's that big corner on the Patriots that completely shut him down. I forget his name, but anyway,
Jackson.
J1, is it?
Jason Jackson, way, or what else? Yeah.
Either way, he looked like he was playing cornerback. I mean, he looked like he was trying to stick to the guy. Where is the route running when the light comes on for Jalen Rager? I've seen him do it in practice. Why doesn't it translate?
I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's one of those things where he starts to look at everything and you get into the stadium and feel, you hear the music player, you got the fans yelling, and then it's like, it's time to get ready. I don't know. It's hard to tell because, like you said, you see him make the route running. He's gotten better. I'll put it this way. He's gotten better as training camp has progressed because remember Nick Sirianni was on him, and then it's like everything finally clicked. But I think it's more, maybe it's just a situation where he just realizes a game and he starts getting in his head a little bit more. And then that's when all the stuff that he learned, it doesn't really translate to the field because his routes looked a lot sloppier than we've seen in the past. I mean, we've seen him. He's fluid. He's fluid when he gets out of his breaks. He makes these catches. I mean, anybody's seen that one-handed catch. And now it's like, I think it's when the spotlight comes on and the cameras come on, it's one of the things he tenses up a little bit. And he's not the only one, I think. I think when you look at him, I think you look at Travis Fulgham. I think a lot when you look at these guys, you wonder what's going on with it. You really do.
Chris, let me ask you to evaluate the running back position. Did we learn anything last night? We've got more practices against the Jets, controlled practices, and then a final preseason game against the Jets next Friday. So they have one more week to sort it out with performance. But we had last night's performance. Certainly Miles Sanders is going to be the number one, and he actually had a nice 10-yard run last night to get everything going, and then thereafter he was pretty much out, and all the other guys got a chance to play. Did your thought process on how they're going to use and who's going to be here in the running back room change it all last night?
I don't think it has for me because the one person I really wanted to see, but he was out because of rib injury, was Jason Huntley. I had originally had the team possibly keeping 5 only if Huntley was going to be returning kicks. But I think right now, when you look at just the way the room is, Elijah Holyfield ran well, but I just don't see him unseating either Kenny Gainwell. He get rid of Kenny Gainwell, Jordan Howard, Scott, or Sanders. I don't see him being better than that. So it looks like he's going to be back on the practice squad again. I mean, if you're in a pinch and Jordan Howard goes down, he's a nice short yardage option, but you really didn't learn anything. And I'm looking to see, and they're probably hiding it because it's the preseason. They don't want to give away the thing. I just want to see when they have those two backs, such as Sanders and Gainwell on the field, or Sanders and Scott, what they do with it, because I think that could be an explosive 1-2 combo with just what you could do formational wise and singling up against linebackers and linebackers, especially, and sometimes safety. So I don't think there was anything that came of it. I wish we saw Jason Huntley a little bit more.
Yeah, you bring something up there with the 21 personnel. The one thing Nick Sirianni has been consistent about is that he's not going to show anything in the preseason. He thinks he has an advantage. But I asked D. Gunn about this, so I'm going to ask you about it. At what point do you look at some of these numbers? And as I said, 52-0. It took them till 1:51 left in the second quarter to convert a third down. They didn't convert a third down against Pittsburgh. So almost 6 quarters of football. At what point does that affect the confidence of the play caller? Or does it affect the confidence of the play caller? Because you look at, that's a big, as Jerry Seinfeld might say, that's a big matzo ball, 52-0. I mean, I mean, that's bad. How can that affect his confidence?
I don't think it was, because I think he's really holding on to that. But there's another number stat looking at time of possession. I mean, they've been getting killed in that aspect too, which is going to be a domino effect and affect that defense, the depth of that defense, because they're going to be on the field so long. You start to wear those guys down. You see early in the season. So if you need them later on, you got the extra mileage. But I think he's banking on the fact that nobody's truly seen the other stuff that offense can do, or some of those other unique formation or personnel packages they want to use. So I think he can rely on that aspect. Now, 2 games in, if they're still really sluggish, which is a definite possibility because this offense hasn't had extended time in game situations to get to play together. I'd probably say after 2-3 games, then you start to worry a little bit, seeing if they can get anything going when it comes to play calling. Do you have to scale back some things? But I think for right now, I wouldn't be too concerned. But I'd say ask me about 2-3 weeks into the season, and that answer might change, though.
All right, Chris, I'm going to give you a spin job here. Tell you ahead of time that it's nothing but spin, but I'm going to get you the answer just the same. It's good news. When the Eagles go to their backup defensive linemen, there's a big drop-off. When they go to their backup linebackers, there's a big drop-off. When they go to their backup secondary, there's a big drop-off. They were all pretty bad dropping off. Which one scares you the least? If they do have injuries, if there are guys out, if the season gets underway and a couple of guys are on IR, is there any, if you're talking about the secondary, the linebackers, or the D-line, where you go, okay, that's the one place we could afford to lose somebody because the drop-off is there, but it's not as bad as it would be in the other two?
Well, that's a good one. I'm going to go defensive line. And I'm going to say I thought T.Y. McGill, especially the defensive tackle, I thought T.Y. McGill and Raekwon Williams, I think they're all right. Marlon Tuipulotu, I just don't see it. He got there was I think it was a wham block or a trap that he went too far out and he took the bait and he got smashed. I just don't see it. But also you look at some of these other guys. I think Teron Jackson, he played better. You look at Milton Williams, I think he's got a real good future ahead of him just for his versatility, and especially if they start playing some odd man fronts, I think he could be very valuable there. I think that's where you see it. The secondary, it needs some help. I mean, Michael Jacquet had another bad outing. I mean, I know everybody's looking at that.
Which Patriot wide receiver was it who put the move on him? That basically broke his ankle.
Yeah.
Looked like an Allen Iverson crossover.
He's still in the spin cycle right now. I mean, it's just that he's just had a bad camp. I mean, and you see the guys on the sideline, they're trying to cheer him up. I mean, when they were doing the red zone series, you saw Slay and Nelson try to cheer him up, hyping him up, going, hey, you did a good job sticking him close to that. But just like we were talking about with just previously, is something when it comes to those games. And I thought I had high hopes for him. I thought he was a bigger corner compared to what they used to have. He can physical, he'll be all right, but it just seems like if he can't get his hands on somebody, he's toast, and it's rough to see that. But the defensive line, I think, has the most depth out of everybody when it comes to that one. But the linebackers, I think, surprisingly aren't too far off when it comes there.
All right, I want to talk about, since we only have you for a few more minutes, Chris, I want to talk about the quarterback. And obviously, Jalen Hurts, we didn't get to see him. But if he didn't get sick, he would have only been out there for 2 series or something of that nature. Would have been a quick cameo again. So I want to know, when did Jalen Hurts become Tom Brady? He won't name him the starter, but he played 10 reps in the first preseason game. He was supposed to play 2 series in the second preseason game. And then from what D. Gunn is hearing, from what I'm hearing, the original schedule, maybe it changes because he wasn't able to play. He's not going to play against the Jets at all unless they change their thinking. What the heck is going on? This is a second-year quarterback with 4 starts. Doesn't he need reps?
He needs reps, but we saw what happens if you have Flacco or Mullins inside that running in there.
That's
too.
A good point.
But he really does truly needs reps. I think you need to get used to the game speed, because practice speed goes. You can try as much as you can in a practice, but it's still control. When you get to the game speed, that really messes with you. And I think he needs to get the feel of moving in and out, trying to find those windows, being able to elude and escape, and getting time to and experiencing more decisions coming out of when to throw the ball and to see some defenses he hasn't seen, because Belichick was going to throw some defenses he didn't throw in practice just to try to confuse him because he didn't want to show him basically the same look. So I think that was it really truly was a missed opportunity, and I was really looking forward to seeing him. Overall, I think he needs time to develop that accuracy still at a game speed. He's gotten better as camp's going along, and the one noticeable thing I really noticed is that he harped on footwork, and it truly has gotten better because you see him settling his feet. He's getting set and he's going on top of the ball, because a lot of times when he was settling that ball, his release point, he wasn't getting his feet set. His release point was high, and it was just going way out towards the line. He still settles into that at times, but it's getting better. So he just needs snaps. He needs reps, and that the fact that he wasn't able to do that out there because of that stomach bug, I think it kind of hurts him in the long run for his development.
All right, Chris, I'm going to ask you to speculate behind closed doors with the Eagles on Friday afternoon with the coach addressing the players. I think he's a pretty good motivator. I think a lot of the guys on the team are like him and are behind him and have enjoyed this camp and kind of believe that Nick Sirianni is one of those coaches who will give them a chance to be better and show their wares and be able to become National Football League players and or make more money, because everybody likes that. But the season is about to start, and we want to see an improved Eagle team from last year. They're 0-2. I know the scores don't count. I know the standings are irrelevant, but sometimes winning is a mindset. Sometimes you get used to winning. Sometimes it's an inner belief that you can go out there and you can win. They're not only 0-2, their last game was last night, 35-0. Does Sirianni emphasize winning, at least in his conversation with his players when they take on the Jets next week? Because 0-3 is going to be 0-3, and you add that on top of 4-11-1, and all of a sudden you're starting the season going, uh-oh. How long till Christmas? How many shopping days till Christmas?
I don't think it'll be so much winning. I think he's going to, and I can just hear it in the Nick Sirianni voice. We're facing adversity right now. I can see him trying to do a rally of the troops. We're facing adversity right now. The fans don't like where we are. The media doesn't like where we are. And just try to harp on the fact saying, I don't care what everybody else is saying on the outside. I only care what we do on the field. I can just imagine him saying that in his Nick Sirianni voice, like pounding the table. This is how we do it. And PowerPoints and everything else.
We're doubling down, Chris. We're doubling down. I'm going to smack the table. We're doubling down.
We're not going to let these guys get this. We're going to come in there. We're going to have good practices.
And make sure everybody read Chris at NJ.com. Does a great job there with his buddy Mike Kay, who's also a friend of this show. So check out. And he's been, Chris has been charting Jalen Hurts' progression throughout training camp. But I do want to, getting back to Nick Sirianni, what Jody said. Look, I've always joked, Nick talks about competition. He never wins anything. He doesn't win rock, paper, scissors. He always talks about losing. He lost the 3-point shooting contest to Jake Elliott. He loses. Everybody loses everything to Jake Elliott, except 33-yard field goal competition. Right? That's my always shot. However, now we're 0-2 in the preseason. When's Nick Sirianni going to win something?
I think there's a tournament they're having inside where he has a chance. I don't know.
Tetherball?
Maybe. I don't know. And I thought it was interesting when I was watching the video that the Eagles released about how it mentioned that he had a hamstring pull sometimes. So you may say, like, you know what, that stopped me back. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe it's only so that mantra can only go so far until you're like 0-3, 0-4, because then I think that's when the veterans are going to start questioning. And I think he's going to focus. I think he's going to focus on series by series, case basis. But I mean, they'll say they'll go finish by series, but it's in the back of the coaching staff's mind, like, hey, we got to string some stuff together, or got to make some changes. So this year is not about. I mean, I spoke with Steve Mariucci about this too, and I actually kind of agree with him too. This year, this team is just, to me, his team's not winning division. I thought they were going to win 7 games heading in. This is more about player development and seeing if there's any improvement with these young guys who are supposed to be cornerstones of your team, like Devonta Smith, like Jalen Hurts potentially, and guys like Zach McPherson, Milt Williams, what have you. So if you see them over time. If you can look at game 10, game 11, go, hey, you know what? Remember this preseason, these young guys didn't look bad. Now they're like, you have some pieces here. You move forward from there. I think they'll take that as a success. If they're 0-2 and they like the players like ththey've regressed, or not 0-2, 0-10 or 1-9 and players like they regressed, then that's when I think you see a lot of red flags coming up.
If it were me, what I would do this week, I'd follow Nick Sirianni around and hopefully went into a store and bought lottery tickets, because then I'd get in line behind him, because I got a better chance to win because we know he's not winning. So I just grab me a couple dollars of lottery tickets. Organized practices against the Jets this week. We were told by guys like you guys who were down there watching every single snap, the Eagles got the better both of the 2 days against the Patriots, and then got beat 35-0. What do we read into the practices against the Jets this week before the game on Friday next week?
I think you read more how much these veterans play. They got all the guys that were out. Do they come back? And guys like week to week, I want to see if Davion Taylor is healthy enough to play, because I think another roster spot like Patrick Johnson's comes out there. I just think you just want to see them come back and not look listless, and they hold their own, especially against the Jets, because Jets have pieces. But I don't.
Be careful.
Oh,
that's Jody's team, Chris.
sorry, Jody. I just see.
Yeah, Jets are 1-0. Just remember that. Jets are undefeated right now.
I just look at. I see some of the things right now. Just like. I think they have a nice base to build on.
He's trying to be nice now.
Yeah, I have my questions about Zach Wilson personally, but in long term, but that's a whole nother thing.
He's going to be okay. It's just Fields is going to be better. They're going to hear about that for the next decade. The Fields is the better player, but Wilson's going to be all right.
Yeah. And then I think they just want to. They have to hold their own and not stink up the joint. I think that's the biggest thing, and it comes down to that point. But I think the Eagles are a little bit better ahead of the Jets, I think, overall roster wise, but not that much. Nothing that goes like, oh, well, this is come in there and win every rep and win everything. I don't think they're nowhere near that. But it should be one where they have 3 instances, both joint practices and the game, where you go, all right, cool. You can see that they're a better roster in that one too. But they can't go in there sticking it up the joint all 3 times, even 2 or 3 times, because I think they're going to have extreme red flags. And
I love where we are in week 3 of the preseason. Go in there and don't stink up the joint. That's where we are with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Facts.
Unfortunately true. All right, I got one very important question left for you, Chris, from a guy who's only been doing radio for 33 years. Have you ever been a DJ?
No.
You got a phenomenal voice. I don't know if you can sing rhythm and blues either, but you sound like a guy who could cue up a Marvin Gaye song and lead into it like nobody's business.
Oh, well, it's now about 29 minutes after the hour. We're going to have Marvin Gaye.
There we go. There we go. We got you a side gig, Chris.
You got a phenomenal voice, brother, and we appreciate you sharing it with us here on Birds 365. We'll get back to you in a couple weeks. By then, the Eagles will be 2-0, and we're going to go back and erase all the YouTube tapes where the 3 of us sat here and go, yeah, don't go in there and completely screw it up. We'll burn these tapes down the road when the Eagles win their first 2 games, or so we hope. Chris, great stuff. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Chris Franklin from NJ.com. Doesn't he have a great voice?
Yeah,
I wish I had his voice.
Yeah, so do I. I'd say my buddy Mike Gill, he's got that deep voice as well. I need, you're on the radio much more than me, but I'm on the radio too. And yeah, I just don't have that big, powerful voice. I'd love to have it. But what can you do?
Chris has got, as we say in the business, great pipes. He really does.
Yeah.
We'll come back here with the 2 mediocre pipes guys, McDonald and McMullen. We still got half an hour to break down what happened to the Eagles last night. We could probably do it in about 2 or 3 minutes, but we'll get a full half-hour analysis still to come your way here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.